The last terror bird probably did not die in a duel with a saber-toothed cat. There was no decisive battle, after which the ancient birds suddenly surrendered an entire continent to mammals. The end may have come much more quietly. Early morning spreads across the plains of prehistoric Florida. A tall, flightless bird moves through scattered trees, its massive head lowered. Small prey rustles somewhere in the grass. In the distance, predatory mammals from another evolutionary world call to one another. The terror bird is still fast, heavily armed, and capable of killing. But the ecosystem around it is changing faster than it can adapt. For millions of years, these birds occupied an important place among South America's terrestrial predators. Then the two continents connected, and the old order began to collapse. It seems obvious that cats, dogs, and bears simply displaced the giant birds. Yet the fossil record tells a more complicated story. To understand their extinction, we must search not for the winner of a single battle, but for the moment when their entire way of hunting stopped working. For most of the Cenozoic era, South America evolved in near isolation from the northern continent. Animals emerged there that would look completely unfamiliar in a modern savanna. Strangely built native ungulates, enormous armadillo relatives, giant ground sloths, and predatory sporacodont mammals. Among them appeared the Phorusrhacos, an entire family of flightless carnivorous birds. Some were relatively small, while others stood nearly 3 meters tall. Their long legs were adapted for rapid movement across the ground, and their tall skulls ended in powerful hooked beaks. But calling them the uncontested rulers of the continent would be misleading. They shared their prey with predatory mammals, large snakes, and terrestrial crocodile-like reptiles. Their success was not caused by a complete absence of rivals. It came from being part of a stable ecological system for tens of millions of years. A terror bird was not simply a substitute for a cat. It was the result of a completely different evolutionary experiment, one in which the role of a running predator belonged to a bird. Its hunting method probably looked very different from the way it is often portrayed. A terror bird was unlikely to hold a large, violently struggling animal in its beak for long. Computer models of one Phorusrhacid skull revealed an important weakness. It could withstand powerful vertical forces, but it was less resistant to stress from the sides. The bird probably rushed toward its victim, delivered a precise downward strike, and immediately stepped back. Then it attacked again. Smaller prey could be killed quickly and swallowed in large pieces. This was not a crude battering ram, but a specialized weapon designed for one particular motion. In open terrain, that strategy worked extremely well. Long legs closed the distance, the tall neck turned the head into a striking lever, and the beak tore through tissue like a heavy axe. But every specialization comes at a price. When the size of available prey changes, vegetation grows denser, or more competitors gather around a carcass. The perfect hunting technique can become a limitation. The strength of the terror bird concealed its dependence on the world for which it had evolved. The turning point did not begin on a single day when a complete isthmus of Panama suddenly rose from the sea. Islands, shallow waters, and temporary stretches of land formed gradually between the Americas, allowing some animals to cross the boundary long before the main exchange began. The most remarkable evidence is Titanis, the only terror bird reliably known from North America. Fossils from Texas are about 5 million years old, while in Florida the species survived from roughly 2.2 million to 1.8 million years ago. The large-scale exchange of animals intensified later, around 2.6 million years ago. This means Titanis was not a refugee driven north by victorious mammals. On the contrary, it was one of the early invaders. It entered an unfamiliar world and lived there beside northern predators for a very long time. This bird did not lose its first encounter with cats and dogs. That fact alone destroys the convenient story of an immediate evolutionary defeat. But then, movement accelerated in both directions. Dogs, cats, bears, and other carnivorous mammals spread southward. They did not arrive as a single invading army, and they did not all appear at the same time. Some crossed before the final closure of the land bridge, while others expanded much later. The disappearance of terror birds therefore cannot be described as a brief war between birds and mammals. Competition worked slowly. A new predator could pursue the same prey, steal carcasses, kill juveniles, or survive a hungry season more successfully. Cats relied on stealth and grasping forelimbs. Dogs could chase prey over long distances and consume a wider range of food. bears were not dependent on fresh meat alone. Terror birds also possessed important advantages, but their hunting style was closely tied to a body plan that could not be rapidly redesigned. There is no direct evidence of constant violent battles between these animals. There is, however, a more important clue. After the continents connected, food webs became more complex, and the cost of every failed hunt increased. At the same time, the climate was changing. The end of the Pliocene and the beginning of the Pleistocene brought stronger cooling, shifting rainfall patterns, and repeated glacial cycles. Forests retreated and returned. Open landscapes expanded, then broke apart again, while herbivore ranges shifted across enormous distances. For a large predator, hunger is not the only danger. Unpredictability is just as deadly. One generation may find abundant prey on the plains, while several generations later, those animals have disappeared or been replaced by species of a different size and behavior. Research into the Great American Biotic Interchange shows that its outcome was not simply a northern victory. South American lineages suffered disproportionately severe extinctions, while environmental conditions determined which animals could cross the new land corridor and successfully establish themselves. Terror birds were caught inside several transformations at once. New competitors increased the pressure, climate change rearranged the landscape, and the disappearance of familiar herbivores reduced the range of suitable prey. Each factor alone might have been survivable. Together, they became a trap. We can imagine one of the final hunts of Titanis. Wind moves through the dry grass of an open plain. The bird notices a small mammal and suddenly accelerates. Several long strides, one blow from the beak, then silence. The hunt succeeds, but the victory of one animal can no longer change anything. Other predators are drawn by the smell of blood. The dry season grows longer. Young prey becomes harder to find. Then the vegetation changes, and familiar migration routes vanish with it. The North American fossil record of Titanis ends around 1.8 million years ago. Humans had not yet reached the continent, so prehistoric hunters cannot be blamed. In South America, disputed discoveries suggest that smaller members of the family may have survived considerably longer than the giants. Should that be confirmed, their disappearance was not a single event, but the gradual collapse of several separate lineages. The largest and most demanding forms vanished first. The final survivors endured only where suitable shelter, prey, and open space still remained. So what killed the giant birds after the two Americas met? Probably not a single enemy. New mammals did not destroy the terror birds immediately, but they made their world more crowded. Climate change did not kill every bird directly, but it constantly redrew the map of their hunting grounds. The disappearance and replacement of prey did not resemble a catastrophe unfolding in a single day, yet it steadily erased the future of a specialized predator. Titanis proved that terror birds could cross boundaries and survive among unfamiliar animals for millions of years. It was strong enough to enter North America, but strength alone was not enough when the entire system changed. Its final hunt became the last, not because a more terrifying beast was necessarily standing nearby. It became the last because the world could no longer support animals like it. Evolution rarely announces a winner. It simply changes the conditions, then leaves in the rocks those who could not change quickly enough. What do you think was decisive? New competitors, climate change, or the disappearance of familiar prey?